There is a new World Rapid Chess Champion, and that was already clear after day 2 of this event, as Magnus Carlsen, the reigning champion, the champion of 2023, had withdrawn from the event. I mean, in the last video I extensively covered the topic about the Genes Gate, as we can call it, and probably we will hear more about it in the future as well. In any case, Magnus no longer the champion. Who is going to be his successor? Well, it turned out that on day 1 in round 2, a very important game was actually played, determining the outcome of this event. Of course, there were still many games to be played after this game, but it's a crucial game played between Volodymyr Murzin, only 18 years old, a very strong player from Russia, against world's number 2, Caruana. It's a very interesting game, as therefore I would like to cover it here on the channel. Let me know what you think of it. If you do like this video, give it a like and subscribe to the channel, of course. So here we go. Murzin playing with the white pieces. He goes here for the move 1e4, and we have the Sicilian defense: knight f3, knight c6, knight c3. No open Sicilian, or after knight f6. Anyway, we get back to the main lines of the Sicilian Sveshnikov, an opening Fabiano Caruana used to play himself with the white pieces. Remember that World Championship match against Magnus Carlsen. He failed to prove anything in these games, but now he's also playing it quite a lot with the black pieces. Now, let's have a look what happens. Knight db5, d6, all very well-known mainline stuff. Has been played by both players before. Knight a3, b5, knight e5, the positional variation. White is trading off the bishop for the knight and follows up with the move c4. b4, knight c2, attacking the pawn on b4. Black goes for the move a5. So this is actually a very well-known position. Black has the bishop pair, but you can also say that the bishop on f6 is perhaps not the best piece, at least not at this particular moment. Interesting positional battle, has been seen thousands of times before. Bishop e2, castling kingside by both sides, and here the traditional move used to be bishop g5 to activate the bishop, to guard a lot of dark squares. But the modern way of playing this variation is to play here with the move g6. So that after queen d3, the bishop goes back to g7. May look strange because the bishop is not super active, but it's guarding the king pretty well. Later, the bishop can always come to h6 if it wants. But for now, we have an interesting positional maneuvering game. Rook 81. White is putting pressure down the d-file against that backward pawn on d6, but in general that pawn is not such a big problem for black. Bishop e6 played, and here the move bishop f3. Lot of ideas here for black. What is black aiming for? Very good question. I mean, you always have to watch out for knight forks if you move your queen to the wrong square. So typical idea here is queen b8 to cover the b6 square. Everything is nicely under control, but also this diagonal, especially the dark squares, they are quite vulnerable. White played the move b3. And now the move queen a7. So the queen is nicely placed here, and there are ideas also to prepare the move a4. White played king h1, sidestepping the king, and to make this move, pawn break a4 possible, you better overprotect the pawn on b4. Therefore, rook ab8 was played. And white, what is white going to do here? Well, you can see that the pawn on d6, it's unprotected, but black is usually always there in time to defend it one more time. g3 was played. And, well, frankly speaking, I think black is in good shape, and I think there is no reason to refrain from that plan with the move a4. I think it's what black should try to do. Try to generate counterplay as quickly as possible to keep white busy on that side of the board. But there followed the move rook b7, bishop g2, queen c5. So black, Caruana here, he is just trying to centralize his pieces. But I'm not really sure that was really needed, as here with the move f4, Seems to me that white's position becomes easier to play, and white is first to undertake here some action. The pawn on f4 is actually quite nicely placed. It's the reason why you put a king on h1, that there's not this king standing in a check. If you do take on f4, white's going to recapture with the pawn. And okay, I think this offers quite nice attacking chances. So instead, there followed here the move knight d4. It's a thematical move. Normally black is waiting until white is moving the knight away so he can jump with it knight to d4. Here there are ideas that if white is going to take, you take back with the pawn, and it's a passed pawn. The pawn is supported by the queen and also the bishop. So I think that's something black is aiming for. But white is not interested in taking that knight. Played here the move knight e3. And black goes for the move a4, adding more pressure to the pawn on b3. But the pawn on f4 is still there. And here it's Murzin who goes here for the move f5. Interesting idea to launch an attack against the bishop and also against black's king side. Bishop takes d5 was played. Now the knight does recapture. Pawn takes b3, pawn takes b3. And well, now it is rook a7, and you can see that the black rook is now finally occupying the open file with ideas, of course, to attack the pawn on b3 with a move like rook a3. Now, what is white going to do? Can white continue the attack here? Well, if you do play f6, it's the sort of move you would love to play to attack the bishop. The bishop can still go to h6, and well, the king side remains closed. So instead, Murzin's move, queen e3, it's a nice prophylactical move. I really like this idea, as you do cover the h6 square. And for instance, if you do play the move rook a3 here, apart from simple defending ideas like rook d3, protecting the pawn, the key idea of white's play here is to follow up with the move f6. Rook a3 was not played, but let me show you what's the idea. If the bishop goes to the only square available, all of a sudden it's checkmate, knight e7. Nice little idea. While if you start with the Sicilian Zug, rook takes b3, attacking the queen, then it's time to give another check with the move knight e7. And if the king goes away, there are various moves, but the simplest, the most human way of playing here is to capture the bishop with check. Black is a piece down. So you can see that white's attack is actually quite dangerous. Therefore, anticipating white's threat here with the move f6, black played here the move f6 himself. And well, that's not a move you would like to play. That bishop on g7 looks terrible. But how is white going to play here? How is white going to break through? Are you going to double on the f-file? Well, keep in mind that black is ready to launch the attack with rook a3. h4 is a very nice move. If you do play rook a3, there's rook d3, and everything seems to be pretty well protected here. So instead, rook a2. What is this rook going to do there? Well, it hits the bishop, still protected the bishop, of course, but you can see that the white king is also potentially quite vulnerable. But look at this, white continues with the move g4. White is launching a pawn storm with ideas to go g5 and break open up the king side. And well, FIDE was getting under tremendous pressure here. After his next move, knight e2, he is down to only about 48 seconds at this point, offering the exchange of queens. And if queens are coming off the board, that would be absolutely okay for him. But white is keeping pieces on the board. Played here the move queen h3, and you can see that that pawn on f5 is an absolute nuisance. Rook f7 played, and white continues here with the move g5. It's white who is dictating here the course of the game. There are all sorts of ideas to take on g6, then to take on f6. Massive pressure against that pawn. Black played here the move queen c8. That's very understandable, pinning the pawn on f5, so the taking on g6 is not very attractive. White is not interested at this point to take the pawn and go for the exchange of queens. Interestingly, machines are saying that white can simply take here the pawn on b4, but when a strong player is having this position as white, you're more focused on how to play for an attack. And I do like Murzin's move Rook d3. I think it's a nice way to further strengthen the position, to guard the third rank, protecting the pawn, looking for opportunities to get that rook involved as well. Pawn takes g5 played. Not saying this is a good decision, but being under such huge pressure, it's understandable that you try to generate some counterplay. And Fabi had some clear ideas here in mind. After taking on g5, he captured the pawn on f5, and this looks really anti-positional, allowing white to get these connected pawns there on f5 and g5 looks really good for white. But there follows here the move e4. Is this a desperate idea? No, in a lot of Sveshnikov lines, this is a very standard idea to create a square on e5 for your bishop, so that the bishop will not fall under an attack after a move like f6. White may take the pawn on e4 right away, but instead there followed rook e3, which is also fine. Securing the rook, attacking the pawn on e4 one more time. Bishop e5 played, and now bishop takes e4. So white is up, a big pawn, but black is looking for counterplay against the king. That g3 square with knight g3 ideas is looming, but okay, white, thanks to the rook on the third rank and the queen on h3, everything is perfectly still covered. Rook fa7. And well, it is really bad news here for black. But Murzin, also getting lower on time, failed to deliver here the final blow. There's an amazing line which I would like to show you. There is this move g6, was not played in the game, but the idea is absolutely stunning. If you take the pawn, there could follow knight e7, forking the queen and king. If you take that knight, there is bishop d5 with check. If the king goes to g7, you play the move f6 with check, attacking that queen on c8. After bishop takes f6, you take the rook on e7 first. Bishop takes e7, rook f7 with check. You're not interested in that queen, but you're playing here for checkmate. Absolutely amazing line. And I mean, if Murzin would have had more time here on the clock, probably he could have found this idea. It's so natural to try to play for an attack here, but he played it solidly. He played queen g4, and he's attacking that knight on e2. The knight goes away to c3, and okay, if you take on c3, there are ideas that black is getting a passed pawn, so white doesn't want to do that. What should white do instead? I do like a move like bishop g2, just holding on to your advantages, guarding your king looks very safe. But Murzin played here rook h3, going on the h file for some sort of an attack. And black, well, black should do something. I mean, his king side is wide open. You better try something like rook a1. Try to remove the defender of the back rank and, well, pray for the best. But there followed king h8, a very passive move. But why did he play this move? Well, getting out of a knight for probably. But here, there is this move g6 with pressure against the pawn on h7. Rook a1 was played now. Rooks are coming off the board. The king comes to g2. And the rook goes back to a7 to defend that pawn on h7. Well, here black is completely busted. And there are various ways to proceed, including beautiful move like king f3. Like, there's no killer blow here yet, but why not to strengthen your position? You have all the trumps here as white. Rook takes h7 feels like a very hasty move. It's a kind of a move you play in time trouble, which is of course very natural in a rapid game. But here things are getting simplified. Rook takes h7, pawn takes h7. Now you cannot take with the king because it runs into this discovered check with the move f6. If you do take that bishop on e4, there's queen g7 with checkmate. Very nice idea. Therefore, rather than taking the pawn, knight takes e4 played by Fabi. Queen takes e4, and well, there are always ideas to play f6 when you take the pawn on h7. Therefore, first it's the move queen a8, looking for counterplay. And once again, how should you play? Should you play active, looking for your own chances, or should you deal with that threat? Now, apparently, white having this tremendous potential attacking duo with queen and knight, should have gone here for the attack. Murzin played queen c2, preventing queen a2 ideas, but let me show you this idea. With queen g4, the queen cannot easily go away from the back rank because of mating threats on g8. If you do give a check on a2 though, there's king f3, you can take the pawn on b3 with check as well, but there's knight e3 back. The knight goes back into defense, but the knight is a fantastic defender, taking away all the possible checks from the black queen. Now, there's his mating threat on g8, as I said already. If you take the pawn, it's queen g6, king h8. You can play f6, renewing a mating threat. This time on g7, black is forced to give up the bishop, and that is a technically winning endgame for white. Well, didn't happen in time trouble. Queen c2 was much safer move, but after king takes h7, now it will be much more difficult for white as well to convert. King f3, queen a1. It's a queen endgame, and remember that in queen endgames there's always this high drawing tendency because of perpetual checks. The knight goes back also in this line to secure the king. King g7 played. Queen to d1, offering the exchange of queens. Very understandable. White is still a pawn up, and it looks like white has very good winning chances. King goes to f8. Apparently another missed win here. f6. That's not a move which would have crossed my mind, but of course, the engine is very enthusiastic about it. If you take on f6, there's queen takes d6, and white has managed to create a new weapon, the passed c pawn. Now, there are a lot of other lines to consider there after a move like f6, but I understand that Murzin decides to keep that pawn close to the king, well protected. So queen d3 played. And again, if queens are coming off the board, life will become much easier for white, but black is fighting here with the move queen c1. Look at this, guys. There is queen h1 mate as a huge threat, but the white king is walking in. And okay, players are really low on time, but remember, they play with this 10-second increment, so it's very difficult to flag your opponent. But okay, 10 seconds are usually not enough to avoid huge blundering. King d5 is a very nice attempt here, and I think black can actually save the game if he goes for queen h1. If the queen goes back to e4, there's queen a1, and there are all sorts of ideas to come back and try to hold this position. If you go for a move like king e6, there's queen a7 threatening checkmate in one, and well, white is in trouble in that case. So very difficult line. Of course, to calculate all of this, it's not easy. Instead of queen h1, they followed queen a1, which is also still fine, with similar ideas to give a check on a8, or to bring the queen to a7 and give a check on that side. White can though still play here the move c5, trying to loosen this bishop on e5, remove the defender. But okay, pawn can be taken. Now look at this. King e6, white is playing for a mating attack with ideas to go for queen d8, for instance, and then bring the knight into the attack. And black cannot easily give checks here because the bishop will be unprotected. However, if you first place your bishop on a much secure square, and in particular the d4 square does look pretty convincing. Now the pawn is taking over the defensive task from the queen, and black is ready to give a bunch of checks. Looks like this is going to end in a draw, but FIDE played here this move, queen d4. He is offering the exchange of queens, and this time white accepts because the white king is super active. Now, if you have two options. If you take with the bishop, white is going to plant its knight on c4. This is absolutely game over. The knight is blocking the pawn. White has a very straightforward plan to play f6 followed by f7. Then the king, the black king, is almost stalemated, and you can play knight b6, knight d7, forcing the king to go away, followed by f8 queen. So taking with the bishop is not possible, but I think FIDE consciously went for this exchange of queens as he wanted to recapture with the c pawn, attacking that knight on e3, but the knight comes in to d5, and here white all of a sudden is completely winning. But why did FIDE go for it? Well, I imagine that he believed that he has a passed pawn and he can simply give up the bishop as after king takes e5, there is the move d2, but I think he realized in time, or you can also say he realized it too late, that there is the knight move to e3. The knight is coming back, stopping the pawn, and white is completely winning. Therefore, Fabi adjusted his plans. He moved the bishop away to g3, but that runs into knight takes b4. White is taking the pawn and stopping the d pawn instantly. King g7 played, the knight goes to the blockading square, and now there are two outside passed pawns, which is impossible to defend for the bishop. Bishop goes to h4 to secure the f6 square, but that allows the move b4. The bishop goes back to d8 to guard both the b6 and the f6 square. b5 Play-Doh, king h6, what else to do? Very difficult to suggest a better move. And after the move f6, Fabiano Caruana resigned here in this endgame on move 60. There's nothing you can do. If you, for instance, play something like king g6, there's f7, king g7. And now, how is white going to break through? Well, the most human way of playing here, in my opinion, is to play king d7 to attack the bishop. The bishop got to move somewhere, and then the king comes in to e8, preparing the promotion of the f-pawn. So, absolutely amazing game, and of course, this was only round 2, but it was a very important victory for Volodymyr Murzin, who scored an absolutely stunning result. 10 out of 13, only 6 draws, no losses, and 7 victories. Not only against Fabiano Caruana, you cannot say that he had a weak schedule with his opponents. He also won games against Pragnananda and against Hikaru Nakamura. So absolutely impressive victory for him, becoming the new World Chess Champion in Rapid. Very, very nice. So this is actually the second 18-year-old who becomes a World Champion in a month's time. Remember Gukesh winning the classical match against Ding Liren. Now Murzin wins this event. It's a huge surprise, at least to me. I knew Murzin a bit. I've seen him playing before in tournaments, and I know he's a good player, but it's probably not a player I would have put my money on becoming this new world champion. But anyway, we will definitely hear more from him. Hopefully he gets more invitations to prove himself also in classical events against the world's best players. So very, very interesting. Hopefully you like this video. Become a follower, subscribe to the channel, you know what to do. Thanks for the overwhelming support, guys. Also via donations via PayPal, really appreciate it all. And well, who knows, maybe I'm going to show you a game or two more from this championship. Thanks for watching.